taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Ford Escape. Now, this is the plug-in hybrid version of the vehicle. Plug-in hybrid, regular hybrid, cluster screen is going to look the same, but if you're inside of one of the Ford Escapes with a smaller screen, you'll find a walkthrough down below. And then if you want to walk through on just the regular Escape gas cluster screen instead, you'll find that down in the description on top of that. But for the hybrid, plug-in hybrid, let's dive in. The steering wheel inside the vehicle is going to be heated, and you can see there, heating button right along the side. It's not standard across the board though. It is an optional feature, but it's so nice. And it's heated all the way around. Adjusting the steering wheel across the Escape lineup is going to be manual telescoping. So just by your left knee, there's a release. You can go forwards, backwards, up and down to find that perfect position. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. Straightforward. And you've got a boatload of different buttons. But before we get there, we've got some sticks on the left-hand side in order to be able to flash out your high beams, etc. Now, you can't permanently lock them out, and that's going to depend on which light mode that you're in. So you can see there by my left knee, in the auto mode right now. So what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes the high beams are needed, it's going to turn them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. If you want to permanently lock out your high beams, just go into, you see there, adjust out a bunch of different modes. You want to go into your headlamp mode on the very bottom. Then you can push away in order to turn the high beams on, pull towards you in order to turn them back off again. So auto means auto lamps. You can turn them off, but realistically, even in the auto mode, you've got the flexibility to flash your high beams out if you really wanted to. And then there's also a switch down by your knee there in order to adjust the brightness of the cluster screen. So very straightforward. On the right-hand side, that's going to be for your wipers. So you can adjust out a few different levels. When you're in the intermittent mode in the middle, you've also got the option of using this switch to figure out how fast or slow rain is hitting the windshield. So you can adjust it on the fly there or go into one of the crazy modes. On the tip of the right stick, there's also a button in order to turn on your rear wiper. So two different levels there. You're going to pull towards you for the front wiper fluid, and you're going to push away to get that rear wiper fluid going. And then so many buttons. So along the left side, you've got adaptive cruise control. So same idea, adaptive cruise is not standard across the Escape lineup, but toggling it on is straightforward. Once it's toggled on and you start to drive, you can set your speed by going up, and then you can go up or down 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time by moving up or down. If you push and hold, it's going to bring you to the nearest zero. So if you're at 45 kilometers an hour and you start pushing and holding up, it's going to take you to 50. If you push and hold down, it's going to take you to 40. So you can jump up or down 10 if you wanted to, or just 1 up or down at a time instead. And then there's a distance indicator. So how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you, with 4 unique levels there. Think of that like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule. From there, there's also the lane keeping system. So there's lane keeping, and then there's also lane centering. 2 very different systems. The lane keeping, if you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, it'll nudge you back into your lane. The lane centering system is going to keep you perfectly balanced. So it's not fully self-driving, but it gets pretty damn close at the same time. And you can adjust that through the infotainment system. So you've got your features there. You're going to go driver assistance, and then you've got a few options here, but we're looking for cruise control. So you can go normal cruise if you want to, and that gets rid of the adaptive capabilities. So with the adaptive, if a car in front of you slows down, yours will automatically brake, and then if they get out of the way, you change lanes, it'll pick you back up to your set speed. But if you don't like that, you can switch it out to normal cruise instead if you'd like to. And then with adaptive cruise, you've also got a few other options. So lane centering, that's the one that's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane, whether you're touching the steering wheel or not. It's a great system, but you do have to keep your hands on the wheel. You'll get a message in the cluster otherwise. And then there's also predictive speed assist, and then there's a tolerance level as well. So are you okay with going a little bit over or under the speed limit in order to have the speed automatically adjust for you? It's going to be a matter of personal preference there, but I'm a big fan of just the regular adaptive cruise control system going. And there's speed limit assist. So if you are, speed limit assist is an interesting one. So if you're going a little bit too fast, you'll get a notification letting you know that you're going a little over under the speed limit. Same idea. Are you okay with going up to 10 kilometers an hour over? Do you want to get a warning? Yay, nay, that's a matter of preference. Lane keeping works 3 different ways. So if you start to veer over into another lane without signaling, it's either going to give you a little bit of a steering wheel shake, almost as if there's something wrong with your alignment or you're running over rumble pavement, but it's just an alert. Aid is actually going to nudge you back into your lane. and the alert and aid will do both. So you'll get a steering wheel shake, and it's going to nudge you back into your lane. So the systems do work different from one another. And then there are a series of other options that are available. But if you want a full walkthrough on the infotainment system, you'll find that down in the description of this video. But the system itself is straightforward, but if you want a live demonstration of how this actually works, check down below for that walkthrough instead. Then you can increase or decrease your volume this way. There's no mute button though, so in order to mute, you just have to keep on pushing and holding there, or just toggle the radio off by pushing there instead. So you've got options. And then there's a voice command prompt, and there are so many things that you can do with the prompt. You can change songs, radio stations, you can navigate with using your voice, you can adjust the climate settings using your voice as well, turn the heated steering wheel on or off. There are so many things that you can do. I know some people aren't crazy about the idea of not having physical buttons for your climate, but they do work well here. And once you get the hang of using your voice instead, it's a really great system overall. And then you've got a series of buttons here in order to navigate through the cluster screen outside of these ones. So this is to answer or hang up on a phone call. And then you can change between all of your presets this way as well if you had them. You can also do a longer push and hold if you wanted to be able to seek stations. So you can see it's kind of going crazy up there as we go to seek out. So it goes a little bit slow, which is nice. So you can easily pull off as you go. But again, changing stations, just using your voice that way is pretty easy as well. And then inside of the cluster screen, a boatload of different options that are available here as well. So this obviously is the plug-in hybrid. So as of right now, I've got 0 kilometers left, or if I was in miles, I'd have 0 miles left right now. But you've got the current direction that you're facing, your current level as well, so your engine temperature, along with the total odometer, what gear you're currently in. This one here is for the lane keeping system. So whether or not that one's enabled, yay or nay, and then the gear, park, reverse, neutral, drive, etc. Into reverse brings up the backup camera inside of the infotainment system. Your current fuel level, shown a few different ways. So your current mileage until empty, and then there's also it displayed as this gauge instead. You've got your outside temperature, and then digital speedometer. With this one here, think of it almost like a traditional tachometer to a degree. So if it goes this way, you're using power. It might be like a gray type of color if you're just using the gas engine, might have a little bit of blue if you're using the battery. And then if it goes the other way, it's going to be, as you go to charge, well, it's essentially regenerative braking. So it's trying to recapture that charge as you go. The harder you brake, the lower you'll notice that this gauge goes. So it's relatively straightforward. And then you've got a series of other options inside of the actual screen itself. So I'm just going to be utilizing the buttons along the bottom right-hand side in order to navigate through. So starting off, you've got a few different trip counters. So trip 1, 2 versus this trip. All of these things, so you may be able to reset. So this trip I can't, but that's from when the vehicle was last turned off and then back on again. Versus your total trip 1 versus trip 2 counter. You can push and hold OK. If you wanted to be able to fully reset. I just stopped it part way. That's why it didn't reset. So there's a little countdown timer there. And then dropping down, you've got this total trip, your current fuel economy. What are you getting for electric versus regular gas mileage? And then down, total fuel economy has actually been pretty good so far. I mean, even if we scroll back up to the top here. So total trip, I've traveled 71 kilometers, 5.6 liters per 100. That is really solid economy inside of this ride. But I'm not gunning it, I'm driving the speed limit, so that definitely helps out. And you might notice, so the car is going to turn on and off occasionally. It's just whether or not it's relying on battery power versus if it's got the gas motor going instead. And then EV coach, so as you go to brake, it's going to essentially give you a report whether or not you were good as you drove. And then, so many different options here. You've got my view, and that's the home screen view. What options do you want to have here? Do you want to have driver assistance, calming screen, whatever the case may be? So if we pull up tire pressure, it's going to jump you into that specific view. And then same idea. So this essentially is going to be the calming screen instead. So if you wanted to kind of stretch it across, as we go here, watch this. Yeah, look at this. So not quite as much stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you're a bigger fan of having a very minimalistic look instead, this is probably the way to go. But you can see my current fuel levels along with the total battery. So I'm currently at 0. You do get pretty good range inside of the plug-in when you're fully charged up. And then ready just means that we're ready to drive. Back down again, you can go to any of these screens and then you can kind of dive in between as you go. From here, you've got your trip counter. So you've got trip 1, 2, this trip, economy. So you'll notice a few of these things are duplicated in a few different spots. And back out, basic status information for seat belts, battery levels, etc. vehicle maintenance if you're doing maintenance yourself, so you can also see your tire pressure there, and then your oil life. So if you wanted to do a reset, if you've changed oil yourself, just push and hold OK in order to reset that counter. Back down, you've got audio, so you've got presets that are available. So if you've saved in presets, those are all going to show here. You can set up presets inside of the infotainment system, but if you want to walk through and setting those up, you'll find it down below. And then there's AM, FM, Sirius XM as well. So all of your available sources there. And then you can push through in order to get to whatever other source. But again, you can also just use the voice command prompt in order to change out stations that way instead. Navigation. You can look at home, previous destinations, favorites, point of interest icons, and things like that. And a big benefit there, I mean, let's say if we needed to fill up on gas, we can take a look and see what's around us here. So let's go to one that's a little bit further away. Let's just choose this one here. And if we go back out, that's one thing. Navigation. Yeah. No mapping cluster there, unfortunately. That's something that I would like to see. Something nice stretched across the whole screen there, I think would look really solid. But you can at least set up your route this way. Actually, it didn't even start the route. Hold on. Point of interest icons, gas stations. Oh, well, that makes sense. So that's why we can't see any map. Requires activation. So as of right now, oh, that totally makes sense why navigation's not working then. So if navigation was available for factory nav, you would get some turn-by-turn directions there, but because factory navigation's not enabled here, that's why that's not showing up. Yeah, totally makes more sense there. Phone's not paired, but you'd be able to look through all of your contacts and things like that. Settings, there are a series of options. So as of right now, in kilometers, you can do a little split. And same idea, if you're US and you're in miles by default, you could do a split with kilometers instead. Turn-by-turn directions. So if you did have a route going, you'd get turn-by-turn directions as you go. Gauge style. Do you want modern versus classic? So if you'd prefer to have, look at that. See? So you've got your traditional like tachometer instead versus speedometer, and then your charge along the very bottom. So there are different looks that are available there. I like it. Eco coaching, do you want to show yay or nay? It's essentially saying, good job, you've captured the best braking, whatever the case may be. And then a series of vehicle settings. So neutral tow, because I'm not in neutral tow mode. But if you want to know how to actually get yourself into neutral tow to tow your vehicle, check down in the description of the video. And then EV driving history, and then you can press and hold OK in order to reset. But because we're just parked, not going to be any history there. And then there's also the option for the head-up display. So you might have it inside of your Escape. You might not have it inside of your Escape. So just depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. But you could toggle the display off if you want to. And gotta wait for it to go down and button press in order to turn it back on again. Nice and subtle. I like that. There we go. And you can see that there's quite a little bit of info inside of that head-up display. Oh, I just turned it off accidentally again. All right, 1 second. Here we go. On it goes again. Pressing too many buttons. Up it goes again. All right. So there we go. So you can see your current speed. The lane keeping system's turned on. If you had adaptive cruise control going, that would also show up. Turn-by-turn directions would show up there as well. You can adjust different things inside of there too. So if you wanted to be able to adjust the position in order to make it easier to see, you can do that. And moving back, you can adjust the brightness. I always recommend keeping it at maximum brightness for a few different reasons. One of the big ones is that typically with head-up displays, it's tricky to see with polarized sunglasses. But because the Escape uses a nice deep blue, it's incredibly easy to see when you're driving with polarized glasses. So Ford, kudos to you on that one. Works fantastic on the highway. And then from here, you can also adjust the vertical size. So if you wanted to make it a little bit smaller profile, larger profile, whatever the case may be. And then you can adjust the content. So do you want, actually, hold on. Yeah, this would make sense for you to be down here. There we go. So series of different options here. So do you want to show speed sign recognition inside of the head-up display, yay or nay? Distance indicator, incoming calls, lane keeping system, navigation, things like that. So it's kind of cool because as you look inside of the head-up display, you can see everything. And then as you remove certain things, this is what it's going to look like essentially when it's fully loaded. It's actually kind of neat. So you can toggle on or off all of the different content there, which is pretty nice. And I think that is everything. I don't know, what do you think? Nice settings that are available. I do like the calming screen, but just having so many options is so great. But I know that is a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid.